I tripled my production in 1 year with this very simple strategy that anybody can do. And the best part is, it's entirely free. So I'm gonna break down everything that you need to do so that by the end of this video, you can implement this exact strategy in your business, and you're gonna be shocked at how quickly your production is gonna scale, all by following a simple free strategy that I don't see anybody else in any other market doing. So let me break down what this free strategy is and the concept of it. This is gonna be meetups for investors, and what it's gonna entail is you hosting a real estate investor networking meeting where you're going to talk about the different investment opportunities in your market center. Now, if you're like me, when I was a new agent, you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to invest. And here's the honest truth. I've still never invested in real estate to this day, 7 years later. But I was able to execute this strategy, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, again for free, with no experience required. And I'll explain that at the very end. Now, the reason why I decided to embark on this strategy was because when I was a new agent, I was attending other people's investor networking meetups, because what I wanted to do is I really wanted to get in touch with other investors. But here's what I realized, is that when you're attending other people's meetups and networking events, you're kind of in this awkward phase where you're trying to, introduce yourself to a ton of different people. But there's one key thing that I noticed at every single one of them, which was the person that was on stage, the person putting on the event, was the one that everybody was going to talk to. And I realized if I could just be that person that people are coming to, instead of me having to go present myself and pitch myself to all these investors, that it's just gonna convert that much higher. And the person with the microphone at the stage is the one who controls the conversation. And I wanted to be that person. So I tried it, and it tripled my production that very year. So the first thing that we're gonna do is understand what. The what is going to be, again, the investor networking meetups. Now, the key here is that you need to understand what the opportunity is in your market. So back when I was doing this, the opportunity was flips and buy and holds. Similar to now, the market wasn't that great, so you need to identify where the opportunities lie in your very specific market. Now, you could be saying, I don't know what the opportunities are in my specific market. That's the same thing that I said in the beginning as well. So what I did is I consulted with somebody who did know. Now, my broker previously was an investor. So what I did is I set up a meeting with him, and I asked, what are people doing for investments? Where should people put their money if they're looking to invest into real estate? And I found out that it was flips and buy and holds. But I went a layer deeper and started to identify some examples that he could share, which we'll get into. But the concept of this is identifying, if you have real estate investors in any market, what is the opportunity based on the current landscape at this point in time? So the what is very simple. The where. Now, this is really important because for me, you might be in the similar position. I was broke as a new agent. I didn't have money to rent out a hotel room in terms of a conference room. I didn't have the money to rent out a brewery or do anything like that. I had to do it for free. So what I did is I actually started to reach out to co-working spaces. And here, what I realized is oftentimes co-working spaces are really open to giving you free access after hours, because oftentimes they realize that some of these investors and other entrepreneurs could become clients during active hours. And that's what I identified at my own market center, is that there was a couple co-working spaces in my market that were new. They were trying to get people in the door. And by hosting networking meetups, it was able to get a lot of people familiar with that space, and they actually started to get clients from it. So that was a win-win situation that, again, cost absolutely nothing. Now, the how is where things get interesting. Now, again, I talked about understanding what is important in your market. So let me give you an example of what happened with my market. Number one, we identified again that it was flips and that it was buy and holds. So I started to meet with some of the investors that I knew, and you can reach out to those in your market, and I asked them where those opportunities lie and which specific communities and which specific pockets or areas were the best. And once I found that out, what I started to do is go down the rabbit hole on the MLS. And there was about 5 different communities that I realized based on upcoming development plans for transit, upcoming development plans for commercial real estate and different amenities, as well as just desirability, that there was about 5 different communities that were very hot when it came to flips. So I went to the MLS and I just filtered by the most recent properties that sold at a high price point, because that would mean that they were flipped. And here's what I did, and I'll actually put up an example on the screen here, is I would show a side-by-side case study of multiple different properties of what they looked like before they flipped, because you would have access to that MLS data, and what they looked like after the flip, and what the sale price was for each of those. So what I was able to do is actually give real world examples of what happened. And furthermore, I continued to talk to some of the other investors and got a bit of a sense of what the renovation cost would have been. So that way I could give rough estimates of what the margins would be. Again, I have personally never invested in real estate, but I was able to talk to people who did. And this is where the powerful part was showing examples. And if you're in a market where, again, you don't quite know what those examples look like, just talk to people. Oftentimes you can attend a couple investor network meetups, see who the big people are, get a couple examples of what that is, and then you can show them in your presentation. Now, the next part came down to promoting it. This was really important because, again, I didn't know anybody. I was a brand new agent. I didn't have a sphere. I didn't have a big network. So how did I promote this? Now, there's 2 critical websites that I used. One you've probably heard of, one you might not have heard of before. Now, the first one was meetup.com, and the next one was Eventbrite. And so with meetup.com, this was actually a really powerful one, and you'll be able to go search on meetup.com right now in your own market, and you can type in real estate investing, and you'll see a ton of different real estate investing networking meetups. But again, I wanted to put on my own. So all that I did, similar to a YouTube video, is I made the title or the category of mine better, and I made the thumbnail or the picture that you can upload better, more engaging, and more eye-catching. And what happened is, because it looked really professional, people started to come to my network meetups. Now, I also would cross-promote this on social media, so I would share it on my Instagram stories and my personal Facebook page. But the last step that I did is I actually created a Facebook page for the meetup. So it was just called something like Calgary Real Estate Investor Network Meetup. And talking about flips, talking about buy and hold opportunities, and I would also create the Facebook page for that. Now, with the Facebook page, you can create events. And with the events, that's where you can drive the traffic to from your Facebook page post and your Instagram story post, so people can register for it. And the more you can get people to register for it so they can continue to get notifications, the higher the show up rate is going to be. Now, that's one critical component that I want to just echo here, is show up rate. This is a strategy that you have to be committed to. And I know that can be daunting, and I know that this might be outside of your comfort zone, but the truth is, on my very first one, only 12 people showed up, and about 8 of them were my friends, just to support me so that it wasn't an empty room. However, I did it next month, and over 20 people showed up. And by the 3rd or 4th month, I started to have anywhere from 40 to over 50 people show up every single month, and I was able to triple my production through the investors, because here's the critical part. Investors usually don't just want to do one deal, they want to do many. So a lot of the investors I started to work with would flip a property, and I would help them buy it and sell it, and then they would want to flip another and roll that money forward. So you're getting multiple deals every single person you decided to work with. Now, the last part here is partnerships. And this is where you can, number 1, lighten the load on yourself. Number 2, bring in a bigger audience. And number 3, give yourself more credibility. So what I'm talking about here when it comes to partnerships is industry professionals, pros. So what I'm referring to there is people who are electricians, roofers, renovators. It could be automation specialists. It could be mortgage brokers, lenders, or private money lenders, hard money lenders. And what I was doing here is every single month I would have a different industry pro collaborate with me and be a partner in the actual meetup. And what this did was, again, increase my credibility, but also it would be a requirement for them to share the network meetup with their audience. So they would post it on social media, they would talk about it, and they would bring their audience to the meetup, which started to build momentum. And again, it just gave different talking points, because ultimately, any of the industry pros that I brought in also would be oftentimes the people that the investors would want to work with, whether it be the contractors or the automation specialists or the lenders. So I brought in really strategic people, thus it became a win-win. It wasn't just a one-sided thing where they were helping me out, but I was helping bring business to them. But again, this is such a simple strategy that anybody can introduce. And I know you might have that imposter syndrome of saying, well, I've never invested before. And I felt that way too. But again, it all comes down to proper communication and just being, very transparent. I never said I was the one that did those flips. I would say some of my partners have done these. You could start to leverage we versus I. People at our brokerage, people in our network have done these examples. And that's what allows you to be very truthful, very honest, but not have to feel like you're leaning into that imposter syndrome of you not having done it yourself. And that's completely okay, because once you get your first client and you actually do it yourself, you're not going to run into that issue anymore. So this is a very simple strategy. If you have any questions, just drop a comment below, because I would love to see you introduce this. I know a handful of people who've started to do this in their own market as well, and they've seen very similar results. And it's absolutely incredible. It's free. It takes little to no time, but it's going to expand your network with repeat clients who are going to start to help you scale your business. So again, drop a comment if you have any other questions. Otherwise, please make sure you check out this next video if you really want to take your business to the next level in the next 12 months.